the effect of these kinds of indiscriminate airstrikes essentially drives what would otherwise be moderate elements of the Sunni opposition to Assad into the arms of extremists.
Without seeking to minimize the horrors of war in places such as Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, Iran, other Middle Eastern hotspots, there perhaps is no more brutal, violent place at the moment than Syria, where a dictator daily kills his own people without a second thought, where Russia and the United States are nose to nose. But to those who understand the history of the Middle East, Syria has always been where wars fester, where superpowers never understand what exactly they're getting themselves into or how to get themselves out. Always a pleasure to welcome back the professor of Middle Eastern Studies at Florida Atlantic University and author of Syria, the United States and the War on Terror in the Middle East, Professor Robert Rabil. Always a pleasure, my friend.
It's my pleasure, and thank you for having me again.
Well, when it comes to Syria, we have to talk to you. You know the lay of the land so well, and we just talked about this a few moments ago. People say, what a shock. Russia invaded Syria. America's stunned that Russia's in there. How could we be stunned? We can't be that stupid to be shocked by what's gone on here.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, Russia has been preparing for that for quite some time. You go back a few months ago when the Syrian regime started to teeter, started to feel a little bit unstable, where certain Islamist and jihadist factions started to take more territory from them. This is where you had the Russians started to build up, and then what we see now is a more exercise in trying not only to prop up the Syrian regime now, but also to allow him to take certain territories that he lost the last few months.
Let me try something on here that really hasn't been discussed.
Please.
Is it possible that the United States planned this? Let's let Russia get involved. Look, they're going to make a mistake in here. They made a big mistake in Afghanistan. They're going to screw this one up, and it's going to drive Putin into a bad situation in his own homeland, because there's no way that he can solve what is going on in Syria at the moment. How am I doing?
Well, it's a good point, but I don't know if I'm going to agree with that.
That's fine.
You know, I don't think, as a matter of fact, United States has been thus far very cautious vis-a-vis Syria. Syria, let's not forget, it's not, as I mentioned to you before the show, did not fit our core of our national interest. So we always wanted to be very careful as how to approach Syria. And mainly now we are looking at a Syria against a shattered regional order. You don't have a regional order in that region. And this is where Russia stepped in. Russia really is trying to create a viable Syrian regime state led by a minority. And it's going to be there. This is what they are trying to do. And mainly, and let me add something here. It's extremely important because we don't want to get surprised. This is what I expect the Russians are going to do. They're going to hit more Hama, Homs. They're going to go to Ghouta, the countryside of Damascus and all the way south to make sure that they give them the viable state, the urban center, and guard the approaches to the coastal region. They want to have the coastal region, not only Tartus, the port where the ships, the Russian ships docks, but the whole coastal region. And more so, let me add this and I will stop. I know I will take some time.
No, go. We could do an hour on this. Go ahead.
I think also that this Russian plan dovetails well with the Iraqi and especially the Iranians. This is where we see, you know, there are reports that the Iranians go in, and the Iranians are already in. Hezbollah is already in. So really, I think myself that Iran historically has always wanted to have an access from Tehran to the Mediterranean. And this is where the Russians, they are going to be there.
How did we so badly then underestimate the fact that Syria is a linchpin, what you've just talked about here?
Yes.
It brings everything together. It
Yes.
brings Russia involved into the conflict. Yes. It changes the dynamic of the Middle East. How could we be so foolish to miss that?
Well, I would say because we are cautious. And somehow...
Overcautious, so maybe.
Well, I would say yes, overcautious in pursuing a policy. And something we did, we didn't have a political initiative. As a matter of fact, we relinquished the political initiative to our allies, mainly Turkey and Saudi Arabia. And the problem is that Turkey had its own plan, Saudi Arabia had its own plan. They supported certain Islamists and certain jihadists. And somehow the ball dropped. And once the ball dropped, what do you have? The Salafi jihadi went in, and now Russia is coming in really forcefully in. But Russia doesn't mean that it doesn't gonna face problems there in Syria. It's gonna face problems.
They're gonna face massive problems.
They're gonna face problems. But the fact is, Russia is going to have some help from the Iraqi, especially, al-Hashd al-Sha'bi, the mobilization, groups supported by Iran, is gonna have support from Iran, is gonna have support from Hezbollah. And they are going to work together. And this is why you have the agreement about sharing the intelligence.
60 seconds, though.
Please.
When we talk about working together,
yes.
Russia comes in and may think we're the ones to bring this all together. Yes. We can work with Iran, we can work with Iraq, we can work with Syria. Come on. We know that immediately, as soon as you try to put these countries together, they don't get along. There's all sorts of different facets of the religion.
Correct.
They will never be a combined axis, if you
Correct.
will. Correct?
Yes, correct, because it has mainly now you have a deep sectarian divide. And mainly Putin, he's banking on mainly now on the Shia sectarian divide, mainly on the Shia and the offshoot of the Shia, of the Shia, including the Christians. He is, as a matter of fact, to some Christian I spoke with yesterday and before yesterday, they look at Putin now, they say, listen, nobody came and saved us, so we are looking at him probably as a savior.
Is Putin doomed to fail?
I would say he is circumscribed. He's not gonna expand. He's not gonna fulfill his ambition. He is going to go ahead and indeed protect the Syrian regime. And he is now part of the problem. He is a problem for us, but also by inserting himself in this way, he became part of the solution. And this is a leverage for him, not only in Syria, in the Ukraine and the rest of the world.
All I'm going to say is remember Afghanistan.
Yes.
Professor,
It's
always a pleasure,
pleasure,
my friend. Thanks so much for coming in, because you
Thank
know the
you.
lay of the land much better than we do. Don't forget the book, Syria, the United States and the War on Terror in the Middle East. It is called by many educators one of the finest books written about Syria. Learn more about it. Let's close out this week with some four-wheeled skullduggery overseas and in the nation's capital. Next on The Hard Line.